The crystal champagne flute lay shattered on the marble floor of the Burj Al Arab's royal suite, its fragments catching the dying light of the Dubai sunset. Rose petals scattered like drops of blood across the pristine white carpet, and the scent of expensive French perfume lingered in the air, mixing with salt breeze from the open terrace doors 7 to 7 floors above the Persian Gulf. In the security control room 6 floors below, a technician's finger hovered over the replay button. The timestamp read 9:47 p.m., May 15, 2015. 4 to 7 seconds of footage that would change everything. 4 to 7 seconds that the world would never see. In Dubai's glittering empire of infinite wealth and carefully guarded secrets, some truths were worth killing for. The woman in white on the screen moved with deliberate calm, her hands trembling briefly as she covered her mouth in apparent shock. Then, with the composure of someone accustomed to first-class service and crisis management, she smoothed her hair, adjusted her uniform, and walked toward the elevator. The technician clicked delete. 3 months earlier, Layla Karam had never imagined her life would unravel in the clouds above the Arabian desert. At 23, she possessed natural elegance that made passengers forget their fear of flying. Her dark eyes held intelligence sharpened by necessity, and her hijab was always perfectly arranged, framing a face that spoke of Lebanese heritage and hard-earned sophistication. For 5 years, she had worked elite international routes for Emirates Airlines, serving diplomats, oil executives, and royalty with professional grace that had lifted her family from cramped Beirut apartments to modest comfort in Dubai. Hidden beneath white cotton gloves, a simple gold engagement ring caught cabin lights during service. Amir Rashid, 26, worked as an aircraft maintenance technician at Dubai International Airport. He was kind, devout, and utterly devoted to Layla, though his monthly salary barely exceeded what some first-class passengers spent on a single meal. Their engagement had been arranged quietly through family connections, approved by Layla's conservative parents who saw stability and respectability in the match. The December wedding was planned after the busy tourist season ended. Layla had accepted this future with practical grace, though she sometimes wondered about the luxuries she served others but could never afford herself. Love could grow from respect and shared values, as she'd learned watching her parents' arranged marriage bloom into genuine affection. Amir made her laugh, treated her with gentle courtesy, and promised a life free from financial struggle. It was enough, though the diamond watches and designer bags she saw daily made her occasionally dream of more. Sheikh Tariq Al-Nuaimi represented everything Layla's world was not. At 58, he commanded a business empire worth $3.2 billion, built on oil investments and Dubai's exploding real estate market. His custom Italian suits were tailored to disguise the slight stoop that came with age, and his silver beard was trimmed weekly by a barber who flew in from London. 3 wives bore his name in loveless arrangements that had produced children who saw him only as a walking inheritance. Despite surrounding himself with luxury that could purchase small nations, Sheikh Tariq lived in a prison of isolation that no amount of money could unlock. He attended charity galas photographed for newspapers but ate dinner alone in restaurants that closed their doors to accommodate his security detail. His wives lived in separate palaces, his children studied in Swiss boarding schools, and his business associates feared him too much to offer genuine friendship. The emptiness had grown heavier in recent years, settling into his bones like arthritis that no amount of luxury could soothe. The meeting that would destroy both their lives began with turbulence over the empty quarter desert. Emirates Flight EK001 from Dubai to Paris encountered an unexpected sandstorm, and the Boeing 777 bucked violently as Captain Hassan fought to maintain altitude. In the first-class cabin, champagne glasses rattled and even seasoned travelers gripped their armrests with white knuckles. Sheikh Tariq, traveling alone in Seat 1A as always, watched the young flight attendant move through the cabin with remarkable composure. While other crew members braced themselves against seat backs, this woman moved with fluid grace, checking on passengers with genuine concern rather than practiced routine. Her nameplate read Layla, and something about her manner caught his attention in a way that surprised him. When she reached his row, she noticed his untouched dinner tray and spoke to him in flawless Arabic with the musical accent of educated Beirut. There was no fearful reverence in her manner, just genuine attention to his comfort. The conversation that followed surprised them both with its ease and authenticity. Layla found herself genuinely curious about this lonely man who seemed so different from the arrogant wealthy passengers she usually encountered. For the first time in months, Sheikh Tariq found himself laughing genuinely. Layla spoke about her family, her studies, her appreciation for the cultural diversity in her work. He shared carefully edited stories of his travels and his interest in preserving traditional Arabic poetry. Neither spoke of romantic attachments, but both were acutely aware of the careful boundaries they maintained. As their conversation continued, Layla couldn't help but notice the expensive details: his Patek Philippe watch, the subtle luxury of his clothing, the way other passengers glanced at him with recognition and respect. She had served hundreds of wealthy men, but few had treated her with such genuine interest and courtesy. As the plane descended into Charles de Gaulle Airport, Sheikh Tariq extended an invitation for dinner the following evening, mentioning a restaurant with views of the Eiffel Tower. The offer carried uncharacteristic hesitancy, as if he expected rejection. Layla's hand instinctively moved toward her hidden engagement ring, feeling its weight beneath white cotton gloves. She thought of Amir working the night shift, checking tire pressure and fuel lines with the same gentle dedication he brought to everything. She thought of her parents, proud of their daughter's respectable future, of the carefully planned December wedding. But she also thought of the Cartier watches and silk scarves she had admired from afar, of experiences beyond her modest means. Sheikh Tariq assured her he sought only conversation, nothing more, giving his word as a gentleman. The invitation felt harmless enough, just dinner with an interesting passenger who treated her with unusual respect. What possible complications could arise from a single evening in Paris? The plane touched down on French soil as Layla accepted an invitation that would set everything in motion. The decision felt both momentous and insignificant, like agreeing to a slight course correction that would eventually lead thousands of miles off the intended destination. Neither could foresee that this moment of connection would ultimately lead to scattered rose petals, a missing fiancé, and 4 to 7 seconds of security footage that would never see daylight. The private dining room at Glamorous restaurant felt like a movie set, with crystal chandeliers and Lebanese food that reminded Layla of her grandmother's kitchen. Sheikh Tariq had ordered every dish she had mentioned liking during their flight conversation. The wine was older than she was, and everything felt surreal compared to her usual life serving other people's meals at 30,000 feet. He talked about eating alone in his big houses, about how nobody really cared about him beyond his money. Layla found herself feeling sorry for this powerful man who seemed so lonely. When he slid the Cartier watch across the table, her heart stopped. The diamonds sparkled like tiny stars, and she knew it cost more than her family made in a year. She tried to refuse it, but he insisted it was just a thank you gift for being kind to him on the plane. As she fastened the watch around her wrist, Layla felt a thrill she had never experienced before. The weight of such luxury made her feel important, special in a way that her modest life with Amir never could. She told herself this was temporary, just enjoying nice things for a while before returning to her planned future. That night in her Paris hotel room, she stared at the watch, taking photos of it but not posting them anywhere. She couldn't explain to anyone where it came from, but the feeling of wearing something so expensive was intoxicating. For the first time, she understood why wealthy women seemed so confident, so radiant. Luxury had its own power. Over the next 3 months, Sheikh Tariq seemed to appear everywhere she traveled. London, Rome, Frankfurt. He always had business meetings in the same cities where her flights landed. Each time, he suggested they grab coffee or see a museum together. Layla started looking forward to these meetings, not just for his company but for the glimpse into a world she had only served but never experienced. The gifts escalated with each encounter. Designer handbags in London, silk scarves in Rome, diamond earrings in Frankfurt. Layla hid them in her employee locker, wearing them only during their meetings. Each present made her feel more beautiful, more worthy of admiration. She started lying to Amir about working extra shifts, but told herself it would all end soon. She was just enjoying herself before settling down. The Atlantis presidential suite became their regular meeting place in Dubai. The first time he invited her there, Layla's hands shook as she knocked on the door. The suite was bigger than her family's entire apartment, with views that made her feel like she was floating above the world. Sheikh Tariq had filled the room with white roses, and the luxury surrounding her felt like validation of her worth. Their relationship developed gradually during these encounters. He was gentle at first, always asking permission before moving closer. Layla found herself drawn to his sophisticated conversation, his worldliness, the way he made her feel like the most important person in the room. When he kissed her goodbye after their third meeting, she didn't pull away. Sheikh Tariq's private jet became as familiar as her workplace. They flew to Monaco for dinner at restaurants where celebrities ate. In Switzerland, he taught her to ski on slopes where the snow was perfect. Every experience felt magical, like she was finally living the life she deserved instead of just serving it to others. During their travels, she found herself staying overnight in luxury hotels, waking up in silk pajamas surrounded by room service and fresh flowers. The sheikh wrote her love letters in Arabic poetry, comparing her to desert stars and spring flowers. The attention made her feel cherished in a way that Amir's simple affection never had. But gradually, things began to change. Sheikh Tariq became more possessive, asking detailed questions about her life with Amir. He started showing up at airports where she wasn't scheduled to work, claiming coincidental meetings. His knowledge of her schedule became unnaturally precise, and his romantic gestures felt increasingly controlling. The turning point came in Singapore at the Shangri-La Hotel. As they sat on the balcony after dinner, Sheikh Tariq casually mentioned details about her engagement that she had never shared. He knew about Amir's work schedule, her family's financial situation, even her daily routines. When she demanded explanations, he smiled and produced a folder of surveillance photographs. Pictures of Amir leaving her building, her family shopping, her daily activities. The violation felt complete and terrifying, but his explanation chilled her more than the invasion of privacy. He spoke calmly about his plans to divorce his wives and marry her. But when she protested about her engagement to Amir, his expression darkened. He mentioned how easily work visas could be cancelled, how accidents happened to people who interfered with important business arrangements. The threats were delivered with the same gentle tone he used for compliments. That night, as Sheikh Tariq slept beside her, Layla lay awake realizing her fairy tale had become a trap. She had been so seduced by luxury and attention that she hadn't noticed the cage being built around her. But more terrifying than her own situation was the casual way he had threatened Amir's safety. She thought of her fiancé working his night shifts, completely unaware that his life was in danger because of her choices. The designer clothes and jewelry that had made her feel special now felt like chains binding her to a man who saw her as a possession rather than a person. The gifts had come with a price she was only beginning to understand, and escape seemed impossible when Sheikh Tariq held all the power. Layla's first attempt to distance herself from Sheikh Tariq began with small lies wrapped in politeness. She claimed exhaustion from long flights, family obligations that required her attention, and schedule changes that made their meetings impossible. Her text messages became shorter and less frequent, her responses to his poetry letters delayed by days rather than hours. She hoped he would take the hint and find someone else to occupy his attention. Instead, Sheikh Tariq appeared outside her apartment building on a Tuesday morning, his black Mercedes parked across from the entrance like a patient predator. Layla spotted him from her third-floor window, her blood turning cold as she watched him check his expensive watch and scan the building's facade. She called in sick to work and spent the entire day hiding in her bedroom, afraid to leave even for groceries. When she finally ventured out that evening, the car was gone, but a bouquet of white roses waited by her door with a note written in his elegant Arabic script. The message was simple but chilling. He missed her and would wait as long as necessary for her to remember how much she needed him. Layla threw the flowers in the building's dumpster and double-locked her door. The Emirates' flight assignments became impossible to ignore. Every international route Layla was scheduled to work suddenly included destinations where Sheikh Tariq had business interests. Her supervisor explained that important passengers had specifically requested her service, praising her professionalism and language skills. The compliment felt like a noose tightening around her neck. During flights, Sheikh Tariq behaved with perfect public decorum, greeting her politely and making appropriate conversation about the service. But his eyes followed her every movement, and he always managed to brush against her hand when she served his meal. Other crew members began commenting on her frequent assignment to flights with the distinguished sheikh, joking that she must have made quite an impression. Layla's isolation deepened as she realized she couldn't confide in anyone. Her conservative family would be horrified by the affair, and her engagement to Amir would be destroyed along with her reputation. Her colleagues saw only professional recognition, unaware of the sinister undertones. She found herself checking her phone obsessively for messages from Amir, who had started complaining about long shifts and overtime work that kept him away from home. The sheikh's emotional manipulation intensified during their forced encounters. He spoke of his childhood loneliness, his loveless marriages arranged for business purposes, his children who saw him only as a source of inheritance. He painted himself as a victim of circumstances beyond his control, a man who had everything except genuine affection. His tears seemed real, his vulnerability heartbreaking, making Layla question whether she was being cruel to reject someone who truly loved her. But doubt crept in when Amir stopped answering her calls for 3 days straight. His supervisor at the airport claimed he had called in sick, but when Layla went to his apartment, the neighbors said they hadn't seen him in days. His phone went straight to voicemail, and his social media accounts showed no activity. Fear gnawed at her stomach as she remembered Sheikh Tariq's casual threats about work accidents. Her worst suspicions were confirmed during what would be their final encounter at the Atlantis presidential suite. Sheikh Tariq greeted her with his usual charm, pouring champagne and speaking of their future together. But when Layla frantically asked if he knew anything about Amir's whereabouts, his expression shifted to something cold and satisfied. The revelation came with casual cruelty. Sheikh Tariq mentioned that sometimes young men made poor decisions when working around dangerous machinery. Airport maintenance could be such hazardous work, especially for those who didn't pay proper attention to safety protocols. The equipment was so heavy, and accidents happened so quickly that even experienced technicians could be crushed before anyone could help them. Layla's champagne glass slipped from her numb fingers as the truth hit her. The sheikh's investigators hadn't just been watching Amir, they had orchestrated his death. Her fiancé, the gentle man who had never hurt anyone, was dead because of her choices. The luxury surrounding her suddenly felt suffocating, every expensive object a reminder of what her desires had cost. Sheikh Tariq showed no remorse as he explained that obstacles to their happiness had to be removed. He spoke of Amir as if he had been nothing more than a business problem requiring a permanent solution. The casual way he discussed murder made Layla realize she was trapped with a man who saw human lives as expendable inconveniences. Her terror deepened when he casually mentioned that she was now free to fully commit to their relationship. Without Amir to return to, she had no reason to resist their destiny together. The implication was clear: running away would only result in more deaths, possibly including her own family members who had been photographed and catalogued by his investigators. But the final confrontation came in his Burj Khalifa office on the 148th floor. The setting itself was intimidating, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a city where his influence touched every construction project and business deal. Sheikh Tariq sat behind a desk made from a single piece of black marble, surrounded by the symbols of his power and wealth. He opened a manila folder containing new documents, death certificates, police reports, and witness statements from Amir's accident. The papers were spread across the marble surface like trophies from a successful hunt. Sheikh Tariq's voice remained soft and reasonable as he explained how thoroughly the investigation had been closed, how satisfied the authorities were with their findings. He leaned back in his leather chair and spoke of being 58 years old with limited time remaining for happiness. He called Layla his last chance at real love, now that all obstacles had been permanently removed. The desperation in his voice was genuine, but it was the desperation of a predator who had killed to possess what he wanted. He proposed one final meeting to celebrate their new beginning. The Burj Al Arab's royal suite on the 77th floor, where they could discuss their wedding plans without interruption. The location choice felt ominous, but Layla agreed, her mind already calculating a different kind of solution to their problem. As she left the office, Layla's grief transformed into something colder and more focused. Sheikh Tariq had murdered the man she was supposed to marry, destroyed her planned future, and threatened her family's safety. The luxury he had showered on her was now revealed as payment for Amir's life, blood money disguised as romantic gifts. Both believed the upcoming meeting would solve their problems, though they envisioned completely different solutions. Sheikh Tariq prepared for a wedding ceremony that would bind his prize to him forever. Layla prepared for justice that would ensure Amir's killer paid the ultimate price for his arrogance and cruelty. The elevator to the 77th floor felt like a slow ascent to judgment as Layla checked her reflection one final time. She had chosen a simple white blouse and dark skirt, clothes that felt appropriate for what she had to do. Her engagement ring, Amir's ring, sat prominently on her finger, not as a symbol of her unavailability, but as a reminder of the man Sheikh Tariq had murdered. She had rehearsed not a breakup speech, but something far more final. The royal suite doors opened to reveal a scene that confirmed her worst expectations. Rose petals covered the marble floor in intricate patterns, leading from the entrance to a dining table set with crystal and gold. Candles flickered throughout the room, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Soft Arabic music played from hidden speakers, and the scent of expensive incense filled the air. This wasn't a conversation, it was the wedding ceremony of a madman. Sheikh Tariq emerged from the bedroom wearing traditional white robes instead of his usual business suit, his eyes bright with anticipation and something that looked dangerously close to insanity. Behind him, she glimpsed an imam in religious dress, who nodded respectfully before disappearing into an adjoining room. Marriage contracts lay spread across a side table, official documents already bearing signatures and seals. The sheikh's voice trembled with emotion as he gestured toward the elaborate setup. He spoke of this being their destiny, their moment to unite before Allah and make their love official. The words came tumbling out in a mixture of Arabic and English, his usual composure completely abandoned. He had arranged everything perfectly for their wedding night, he explained, reaching for her hands with fingers that shook with nervous energy. Layla stepped backward, her carefully controlled expression hiding the rage burning inside her. She let him speak, let him reveal the full extent of his delusion while she calculated distances to the open terrace doors. Sheikh Tariq wasn't listening to her protests anyway. He had moved beyond rational conversation into a world where his desires had become inevitable reality. His emotional breakdown began slowly, tears forming in his eyes as he spoke of his loveless existence. He described wives who treated him like a bank account, children who visited only when they needed money, business associates who feared rather than respected him. His voice cracked as he confessed that Layla was the only person who had ever looked at him with genuine warmth rather than calculated interest. The tears became sobs as he fell to his knees, gripping her hands and pleading in rapid Arabic. He spoke of being 58 years old with no one to love him, of facing death surrounded by people who celebrated his wealth but despised his person. He invoked Allah's name repeatedly, claiming that divine intervention had brought them together and that rejecting this gift would be blasphemous. When Layla tried to pull away, his grip tightened painfully. His religious appeals became demands, his tears replaced by desperate anger. He spoke of the imam waiting in the next room, of documents that would make her the wealthiest woman in Lebanon, of palaces that would house their future children. The word no seemed to have no meaning in his vocabulary. The conversation reached its breaking point when Layla spoke Amir's name aloud. She watched Sheikh Tariq's expression change, saw the cold satisfaction that replaced his desperate pleading. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper as he described how easily young men disappeared in Dubai, how work accidents happened to people who interfered with important business. But then he made his fatal mistake. He described Amir's final moments with casual cruelty, mentioning how the heavy machinery had crushed him so quickly, how the other workers had found the body mangled beyond recognition. He spoke of removing obstacles to their happiness with the same tone he might use to discuss stock portfolios or real estate investments. Layla's grief transformed into something colder and more focused. This monster had killed the man she was supposed to marry, had destroyed her future, and now expected her to celebrate by becoming his wife. The luxury suite had become a stage for justice, and she was the only one who could deliver it. She moved toward the door, letting Sheikh Tariq block her path as expected. His voice turned cold and commanding as he informed her that she wasn't leaving until they were married. The pretense of romance had completely evaporated, replaced by naked threats and physical intimidation. When he grabbed her arm with surprising strength, Layla was ready. She had positioned herself perfectly, with his back to the open terrace doors. The push she gave him wasn't desperate self-defense, it was calculated execution. Sheikh Tariq stumbled backward, his expensive robes tangling around his feet as he lost his balance. His face showed surprise rather than fear as he fell, reaching out instinctively for support that wasn't there. The fall happened in complete silence, with only the distant sound of traffic far below and the continued playing of Arabic music from the suite speakers. Layla stood motionless for 47 seconds, not in shock but in satisfaction. Justice had been served. Then survival instinct took over. She smoothed her hair, adjusted her blouse, and walked calmly toward the elevator, leaving behind the rose petals, the marriage contracts, and the man who had murdered her fiancé in the name of love. The Dubai police arrived at the Burj Al Arab within minutes of the restaurant staff discovering Sheikh Tariq's body on the 6th-floor balcony. The scene below was chaos, broken glass, overturned tables, and the crumpled form of one of the UAE's most powerful men lying among scattered dinner plates. Above, the royal suite remained pristine except for rose petals and flickering candles, creating an eerie contrast to the destruction below. Detective Ahmed Malik, a 20-year veteran of Dubai's Criminal Investigation Department, surveyed the scene with practiced skepticism. The official story emerging from the hotel management was straightforward: a tragic accident during a business meeting. Sheikh Tariq had been discussing airline partnerships with an Emirates employee when he apparently lost his balance near the open terrace doors. Simple, clean, and conveniently free of scandal for all parties involved. The Sheikh's family moved quickly to control the narrative. His eldest son arrived within hours, accompanied by lawyers and public relations specialists who emphasized his father's business achievements and charitable contributions. The media received carefully crafted statements about a beloved patriarch whose life was cut short by a tragic mishap. No mention was made of marriage contracts or private clerics. Layla's interview with Detective Malik showcased the composure that had made her an excellent flight attendant. She explained that Sheikh Tariq had requested a private meeting to discuss expanding Emirates services to his business partners. They had shared dinner while reviewing potential flight routes and passenger accommodations. The Sheikh had been drinking wine throughout the evening, she noted, and seemed unsteady on his feet when he walked toward the terrace for fresh air. Her performance was flawless, appropriate shock at the tragedy, professional concern for the hotel's reputation, and genuine sadness for a man she described as a valued Emirates customer. She even mentioned her concern about his emotional state, noting that he had seemed distressed about personal matters. Detective Malik noticed her unusually calm demeanor, but without evidence of foul play, his suspicions remained just that. The investigation might have ended there if not for Detective Malik's discovery of inconsistencies during his follow-up inquiries. Airport maintenance records showed that Amir Rashid, Layla's supposed fiancé, had died in a work accident just 2 weeks before Sheikh Tariq's death. The timing seemed too convenient, especially when witnesses reported seeing the Sheikh's security personnel near the airport maintenance area on the day of Amir's accident. Further investigation revealed the true extent of Sheikh Tariq's surveillance network. Private investigators came forward after his death, admitting to months of monitoring both Layla and Amir. Phone records showed suspicious communications between Sheikh Tariq's security team and airport supervisors on the day of Amir's fatal accident. The machinery that had crushed the young technician had been recently serviced by contractors with connections to the Sheikh's business empire. The breakthrough came when an anonymous email was sent to Dubai's largest newspaper 3 weeks later. The message contained not just the 47 seconds of security footage showing Layla's calm exit, but also audio recordings from the royal suite. Sheikh Tariq's own security system had captured his confession about arranging Amir's murder, his casual description of the killing, and Layla's horrified reaction to learning the truth. The leaked recordings revealed the full scope of the tragedy. Sheikh Tariq's voice could be heard describing how he had eliminated the obstacle to their relationship, speaking of Amir's death as a necessary business decision. Layla's responses showed her genuine shock and grief upon learning that her fiancé had been murdered. The audio made clear that her final confrontation with Sheikh Tariq was motivated by justice rather than greed. Detective Malik's investigation took on new urgency as the recordings went viral internationally. The case became a sensation, with headlines about a billionaire who murdered an innocent man to possess the woman he desired. Public opinion shifted dramatically in Layla's favor as people learned the true circumstances of her actions. Layla was arrested and charged, but the prosecution's case fell apart when the audio evidence was authenticated. The recordings proved that Sheikh Tariq had confessed to premeditated murder, and that Layla had acted after learning her fiancé was dead. What had initially appeared to be a gold digger's crime was revealed as a grieving woman's revenge against her lover's killer. The trial became a media spectacle, with international coverage focusing on themes of justice, revenge, and the abuse of power by wealthy men. Layla's defense team presented her as a victim who had been manipulated and threatened by a murderous predator. The prosecution struggled to maintain charges of premeditated murder when the evidence showed Sheikh Tariq had killed first. The verdict reflected public sentiment as much as legal precedent. Layla was acquitted of all charges related to Sheikh Tariq's death, with the judge ruling that her actions constituted justifiable revenge against a confessed murderer who had threatened her life. The courtroom erupted in applause as she walked free, 6 months after her arrest. The Sheikh's business empire collapsed in the scandal's aftermath. His sons faced criminal investigations for their father's crimes, and his legitimate businesses struggled to distance themselves from his reputation. The family's attempts to control the narrative had failed completely, leaving them with a legacy of murder and obsession rather than business success. Layla disappeared from public view after the trial, reportedly using money from a book deal to start a new life far from Dubai. Some said she had returned to Lebanon. Others claimed she had moved to Europe under a new identity. The only confirmed sighting came from a human rights organization that reported she had made an anonymous donation to help women escape abusive relationships. The Burj Al Arab's royal suite remained sealed permanently, its terrace doors welded shut and converted into a storage room. The hotel management wanted no reminders of the tragedy that had occurred in their most prestigious accommodation. But employees still whispered about the case, and tourists often requested to see the infamous suite where a billionaire's obsession had led to his downfall. The story became a cautionary tale told throughout the Gulf region, warning wealthy men about the dangers of believing money could buy love, and reminding everyone that justice sometimes came from unexpected sources. In the end, Sheikh Tariq Al-Nuaimi had gotten exactly what he deserved, and Layla Karam had proven that even the most powerful predators were not untouchable when they chose the wrong victim.